white, shimmering string flowing toward him from a small crack in the fabric of this dimension. The string gently breathes and flows as it ties itself around his waist and immediately begins to pull him back through the small living splinter and through other several dimensional gates. The disorienting darkness suddenly gives way to light, and the pulling stops. He is left standing inside something resembling a life-sized kaleidoscope. The different shapes and colors of thousands of bits and pieces from a scene in history seem to turn in unison, and he can see his teenage father being betrayed by his father. A long and wet, thorny rope is being rolled with patience and skill, and then wielded into a whip. A huge muscular arm is raised towards the sky, and it thrashes the line against the delicate, helpless, and welt-ridden body that eventually gives way to the flow of blood. His young son curls into a ball on the floor and does all he can to hold back his loud cries, but whimpers and whistles manage escape as a result of his flesh being set on fire. As the kaleidoscope continues to turn, he sees his adolescent mother laying her young body down along her dead father, rubbing herself fiercely against him in an attempt to keep his body warm for as long as possible. The cold wins. She withdraws immediately, and our hero sees a dark stain appear in her heart that changes his mother forever. The permanence of death, the exactness of it, slams against her being with a violence so strong she cannot bring herself to fully trust any man ever again. She understands anxiety now, and where love ends. And as the wrinkles of pain and time set upon her face, she cannot ever see any further than the end of love in all things. She has fallen into the quicksand pit of pathology. Somewhere in the background, our hero hears a child weeping, and just then, everything shuts off inside his space-time continuum. Absolute nothingness. It is the supreme absence of life. The kaleidoscope rolls over as black as death itself, and chains can be heard rattling in the air, then running along the ground and all around. The fiery sky above spits millions of small balls of flames onto the roof of the barred cage our hero is now trapped in. He tries to close his eyes and clutch his ears shut to the swarming waves of countless screams with all the strength of his soul, but all to no avail. An immeasurably hot and abysmally terrifying voice that instantly turns his blood to ice erupts around him so powerfully that it feels as if it has come from inside of himself. Look! The kaleidoscope shatters to bits. A priest by the name of Father Angel has our hero's 10-year-old cousin, Fox, in an embrace he is trying to free himself of, but cannot. The priest is Fox's childhood sexual attacker. The two males are lying naked in a bed of white-hot nails that burn perfect holes in their bodies. And as they contort, interminably in pain, the holes seal again and then burn them in new places. Fox had taken advantage of our hero's father's abandonment to sexually abuse our hero when he was 8. Stepping out of the torture of the bed means exposure to an equally tormenting cold, where Aunt Maggie, Fox's mother, screams desperately at her condition and that of her sons. She sits chained to a chair, hugging and rocking herself fiercely. A leader of the church herself when alive, she had always known about the abuse of her son, and then of his own victims, including our hero, but had always refused to do anything about it. Now she's being forced to watch. Above the head of the bed, there is a sign that has been emblazed with what appears to have been an enormous burning sword. The cinder letters read, Traitore. Father Angel keeps playing tricks on Fox in that torturous embrace. Then there is a pretend accidental touch below the waist, for which the priest affectedly apologizes, but puzzling enough, arouses excitement in the reluctant Fox. Finally, the priest demands he be his messenger and servant, Remember, I know you, Fox, and you will give me the purest and most vulnerable in your family. You will be protected by the massive forces of guilt and shame that will keep your victim and his family silent, even when they wish to speak out. And the entire family name will be cursed this way for many generations. When they die, one by one, those who knew and did nothing will have no defense before our enemy. They each will be ours. Without warning, a hot wind began to blow in all directions of our hero's cage, and the room started to spin in a vicious circle until everyone and everything in it were dissolved into a squealing cloud of yellow sulfuric sand. And as it did so, another scene began to emerge. Our hero now finds himself walking inside the cold and gray hallways of a long-lost place. There, in the short distance, a small boy is cringing in pain. His face is buried inside his hands in shame, his head pounding against a lonely concrete corner. He is talking to himself. God, please take me away from here. Please take me back to heaven. Please do it, and I will never ask for anything again. Just then, the little boy feels a hand from behind gently touch his left shoulder. He jumps up, and in a startled turn of his body, swings his arms out wildly, his eyes too flooded with blood and tears to see clearly. Our hero also jumps back, just as he feels the wings of his own heart fail him by what he is seeing before his own eyes. He is standing in front of himself as an 8-year-old boy. Their eyes meet. They immediately study each other in silence. Embarrassed, the little boy quickly moves to dry his tears, but our hero reaches out and places his hands on his little face and wipes them for him. The boy places his cold and small trembling hands over his adult self. They smile at each other. The boy speaks through a smile without moving his mouth. The two are reading each other's thoughts and feelings. I'm dreaming, claims the little boy. Yes, you are. Looking deeper into the eyes of his future self, our little hero observes, you have made it very far. No, Angel, I have not. We have. So, this is not the end? I know you very much want it to be, but that kind of wishing is not for the brave nor the strong, and certainly not for you. Our little hero started to weep again, and shaking his head says, does it get any better? Our hero replies, all I can say is that this will pass you by, and you will go through it, and it's going to be very hard, isn't it? Yes, but not every day. Listen carefully to me. You have done nothing wrong. Everything that is happening to you is not a punishment from God. It is not your fault. On the contrary, God is closer to you than you realize, exactly because you are suffering this way. Soon enough, you will understand. Interrupted the child, like when Jesus and he was carrying the cross and they were hurting him. I really feel like that, like for no reason at all, these people, and they are all leaving me and hating me and spitting on me. Lessons for your future, young man, when you find you are being obnoxious and intolerant yourself. Both souls laugh. Our hero continued, everything is a lesson, including what is happening to you right now with Fox. God will deal with him in his own time and in his own way. But you must also forgive for your sake. And don't forget, you have a voice. Interrupted the child. Turn the other cheek, right? And learn to stand your ground firmly and speak, call out, expose when you're in trouble. That is a lesson from me to you that your father never gave you, nor ever will. There is immense power in that. Interrupted the child. I want to give up. I feel beat up inside and outside. And if anyone finds out I feel like this, they will make fun of me for being weak. You want to give up, I know. And that feeling does not go away for anybody in the world. Not for you, no one. You forget you have a soul, and the soul is eternal. So you see, you can never give up, not because you want to, but because you can't. I think I'm beginning to understand. Good. Tell me. I'm beginning to understand that there is no separation from God. There is no such thing, because we're connected by our two souls, His and mine. And since we're connected by our souls, I'm not alone. And if you're not alone with God, what can separate you from each other? Nothing, as long as you keep your faith. Our little hero looks up at his grown self and opens wide his skinny, pale arms. He rushes forward, and in that instant, the two are locked in an embrace of their own. And they both can feel the beating heart of the other. A thick white cloud starts to descend slowly on them now, like a sunrise in reverse, blowing a mist of hope over new brilliant things to come. Our heroes both yell towards heaven over and again to stop, that they need more time to be with each other. Just then they hear the gentle, thundering voice of God as they are being slowly pulled from each other by the thin, white, shimmering string. Now you have seen, because I have shown you, that your family members are too injured themselves to do right by you. They too are also afraid. Will you forgive them? Will you forgive yourself? Do you want my forgiveness? Surrender to me your wounds. Then, our hero, in his present form, is pulled back through the several portals and placed back into the present dimension. As he re-enters his own consciousness, he notices that the living thread is sewing shut the crack in the fabric of this dimension. He understands now that this tear is actually his once open wound of trauma. And just as the thread makes its final turn, sealing it forever, he feels the finger of God make a permanent mark upon his heart. Through his mind's eye, he looks back into his chest and finds his heart beating red, alive and strong. The eternal mark reads, "Your heart is free. Your heart is free. Have courage, my hero. Your heart is free."